Emily Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the Beverly Hills mansion, one hand supporting her swollen belly, the other closing the sheer curtain a little against the night. Outside, the pool glowed electric blue, and beyond the dark hedges she could see a slice of the Los Angeles skyline blinking like distant stars. Inside, the house still smelled of champagne and expensive cologne from the small celebration Ryan had thrown. The marble floor shone, the designer chairs were perfectly placed, everything looked like a magazine spread, and yet Emily felt strangely out of place in her own home. Behind her, little Lily's pink socks pattered softly on the hardwood. "Mommy," the 4-year-old asked, rubbing her eyes, "is Daddy done talking yet?" She clutched her stuffed bunny to her chest, curls wild from running between grown-ups all evening. At dinner, Ryan had barely noticed her, his eyes fixed on his phone while he muttered about numbers and markets. When Lily tried to show him the crooked heart she had colored, he had nodded without looking, the way you nod at a stranger on the street. Emily had seen it and felt something inside her quietly crack. "He is still working, baby," Emily said gently, forcing her lips into a smile she did not feel. "Big people problems. He will kiss you goodnight later, okay?" Lily nodded, but the look on her small face said she already knew better. Children in rich houses learn fast, Emily thought, faster than anyone wants to admit. She lifted Lily onto the huge king-size bed, the mattress swallowing the little girl in soft white sheets, and lay down beside her. Lily tucked the bunny under her chin, then rested one small hand on Emily's rounded stomach, as if guarding the baby. "Is the baby listening to us right now?" Lily whispered, eyelids drooping. "He is always listening," Emily answered. "Or maybe she. We will find out soon." For a moment, the sweetness of it flooded her chest, washing away the unease. Then, like a shadow sliding back over the light, the memory of downstairs crept in. Ryan laughing too loudly at something Vanessa said. Vanessa's manicured hand on his sleeve, her red mouth close to his ear, the way they had stepped aside together near the terrace, a private world that did not include the pregnant wife refilling juice for her daughter. A year ago, Ryan would have crossed the room just to kiss her forehead, proud to show everyone the woman who had believed in him, back when all he had was a rented desk and a second-hand laptop. Tonight, he had introduced her with a distracted smile. "This is Emily," before turning back to Vanessa and the cluster of investors, as if Emily were part of the furniture. Emily lay still until Lily's breathing grew slow and heavy. Then she slipped carefully off the bed, wincing at the sharp pull in her lower back, and padded down the hallway, following the murmur of voices. She paused at the top of the stairs, hidden by the shadow of a tall plant. Below, in the open living room, Ryan stood with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear, shoulders tense. Vanessa sat on the arm of the sofa, one heel dangling, smiling a slow, knowing smile. "I told you," Vanessa's voice floated up, playful and sharp. "She is dragging you down, Ryan. Family makes you weak in this game." Emily's heartbeat stumbled as she realized they were not talking about investors at all. Tonight, something would break. Before Emily ever stepped into a world of glass walls, flashing tickers, and men who spoke in numbers instead of feelings, she had been just another American girl trying to make rent in a tiny Brooklyn walk-up. She spent nights designing logos on her beat-up MacBook Air, drinking cheap tea while the radiator clanged beside her. Life was small, but it was hers. Back then, Emily carried dreams, not expectations. She rode the subway with paint swatches in her tote and listened to design podcasts because they made her feel less alone. She lived paycheck to paycheck, yet she never complained. Her friends joked she believed too much in people, especially in broken ones. She didn't know that someday this softness would make her a target. She met Ryan on a humid Manhattan summer night at a startup mixer she only attended because her landlord threatened another rent increase. He was charming, slightly awkward, and surprisingly humble. He talked about building something meaningful, something that mattered, and Emily, with her open heart, believed every word. She had no idea she was shaking hands with a future stranger. Ryan pursued her like a man who knew what he wanted. Park picnics, dollar pizza. Long walks along the East River. He listened when she spoke about her mother's passing and how her father worked too much to show love properly. Ryan said he admired her strength. Emily let him in because he felt safe. Her father, Richard Carter, never trusted Ryan's ambition. In his Park Avenue office, surrounded by quiet authority, he warned Emily that men chasing power rarely stop at one milestone. But Emily defended Ryan fiercely. Their argument ended with slammed doors and words they couldn't take back. The silence between father and daughter grew into something sharp. When Ryan's company finally took off, everything changed fast. Investors replaced friends, trips replaced dinners. Emily watched the man who once held her hand across cheap diners transform into someone polished and distant. She reminded herself that success was stressful. She reminded herself that love required patience. Sometimes patience felt like erasing herself. Still, she stayed. She believed in the vows she had made. She believed people grew through pressure. When Lily was born, she hoped motherhood would anchor Ryan again. For a moment, it did. He held Lily with trembling hands, eyes soft, voice unsteady. Emily clung to that version of him, even after he slowly disappeared again. Then Vanessa arrived first as a PR director, then as a constant presence. Her voice became the one Ryan listened to. Her smile lingered too long. Emily noticed. Wives always notice. But every time she tried to talk to Ryan, he brushed her off with cold logic, saying she was tired, hormonal, imagining things. Emily tried to convince herself she was overreacting. But the late-night messages, the sudden urgent trips, and the way Vanessa touched his arm during events told a different truth. Emily felt something slipping between her fingers, something she had fought to protect for years. She remembered a night, months before the party, when a colleague accidentally mentioned that Ryan and Vanessa often stayed late in a Manhattan hotel lobby working on brand strategy. Emily felt the floor tilt, but she swallowed her fear, telling herself that trust meant choosing belief over suspicion. Now, standing in the upstairs hallway of her own Beverly Hills home, hearing their voices drift upward, Vanessa's smooth, sharp tone and Ryan's tense replies, Emily felt her breath shake. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for a long time. And tonight, she sensed the truth was finally rising to the surface, whether she was ready or not. And the next word they spoke would change everything. Richard Carter had built an empire from nothing, yet the one thing he had failed to protect was his own daughter. On Park Avenue, in his corner office overlooking the restless heartbeat of Manhattan, he often stood alone with the city lights flickering across his glasses. People said he was a man without weaknesses, but they were wrong. Emily was his weakness, and losing her to silence had carved a wound deeper than boardroom betrayals or billion-dollar losses. 2 years had passed since their last real conversation. He remembered the storm in her eyes when he warned her about Ryan, the quiet desperation when she begged him to trust her choices. He had said too many cold words, and she had left his office with trembling lips, her pride shattered. 3 days later, he received a short message. "Dad, I need space. I love you, but please respect this." After that, she never responded again. Richard blamed himself every single day. Still, he followed her life from afar. Articles about Ryan's rising tech empire. Photos of events where Emily stood in the background, smiling softly, always overshadowed by her husband's ambition. He saved every picture, though he would never admit it. Secretly, he mailed gifts to Lily on birthdays with no return address. Every year, Emily sent back a simple thank you card in neat handwriting. That small gesture kept him alive. One chilly morning, months before the Beverly Hills party, Richard sat at his long mahogany table while an associate briefed him on a confidential investor situation. The name Ryan Maxwell came up more than once. Stock manipulations, shady capital movements, rumors involving the PR director Vanessa Reed. Richard listened while holding a Mont Blanc pen between his fingers, the same model Emily had given him years ago for Father's Day. Every detail tightened something inside him. He dismissed the associate, closed the conference room door, and stared out over Park Avenue. If Ryan had dragged Emily into dangerous waters, he needed to know. Yet he was terrified of showing up in her life again, uninvited. What if she told him to leave? What if she blamed him for the marriage that had suffocated her? He decided to stay silent but vigilant. When an invitation to a strategic investor gathering in Los Angeles arrived, bearing Ryan's company logo, Richard hesitated only a second. He booked a flight that afternoon. He wasn't going as a CEO. He was going as a father who had waited too long to step in. Landing in Los Angeles felt strange. He hadn't set foot in California for years, not since taking Emily to Disneyland when she was 12. He still remembered her clutching his arm on Space Mountain, laughing harder than he'd ever heard. He carried that memory like a fragile keepsake. He checked into a quiet suite at a hotel near Beverly Hills. From the window, he could see luxury cars gliding down the boulevard, palm trees swaying under a fading sun. He ordered room service and forced himself to eat, though he barely tasted the food. Between bites, he scrolled through old photos of Emily on his iPad, her graduation, her wedding, Lily's first Christmas. Each picture tightened the knot in his throat. He rehearsed what he might say. "Emily, I'm sorry. I never should have pushed you away. Come home if you need to." But none of the words felt worthy of the pain he had caused. That evening, he received a brief email confirming the investor gathering at Ryan's mansion. A strange chill crawled over him. He didn't know why, but the message felt wrong, too rushed, too vague. Richard closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. Something told him he needed to be there sooner than planned. Something told him Emily needed him. And something told him he was already too late. But he could not imagine what he was about to witness. Vanessa Reed had a talent for reading people the way others read weather reports, quickly, accurately, and with a hint of pleasure when storms approached. She was born for rooms filled with power. From the moment she stepped into Ryan's company as the new PR director, she moved like someone who already belonged at the top floor. Sharp heels, flawless hair, crisp blouses that looked like they came straight off Fifth Avenue mannequins. Vanessa didn't just walk into spaces, she rearranged them. She spotted Ryan's weaknesses within the first week: ambition, vanity, fear of failure, and under all of that, a craving for validation he pretended not to have. She fed those weaknesses the way a gardener feeds roots, quietly, carefully, with poisonous sweetness. In Manhattan, the staff joked that Vanessa could make anyone confess a secret or change an opinion just by switching her tone. In meetings, she placed a manicured hand on Ryan's shoulder, whispering the right words at the right moment. "You're the face of the company. You need to look untouchable." Or, "Investors love a clean image. Don't let anything muddy it." Ryan listened. Too much. Vanessa started controlling what interviews he gave, which events he attended, which narratives the media should push. A family man billionaire was good for magazine covers, but terrible for high-risk investors who wanted agility, not diapers. So she began planting tiny seeds. "Emily is sweet," she said once, her voice dripping sympathy, "but sometimes sweet is limiting." Ryan laughed awkwardly, but he didn't correct her. Another time, "You have the chance to be legendary. Don't let domestic chaos bury that." Emily's name was never mentioned directly after that, but her presence became a shadow, an inconvenience in Ryan's world of sharp edges and climbing numbers. Vanessa made sure of it. When the company prepared for its first post-IPO quarter, Vanessa stayed late at the Manhattan office nearly every night. Ryan stayed too. Their strategy sessions blurred into late dinners, then into whispers and long looks. Soon, the walls between professional and personal dissolved completely. The affair wasn't explosive. It was calculated, slipped into place, a puzzle piece that fit too easily. Vanessa had no intention of being the other woman. She wanted to be the only woman. She wanted Ryan's world, his power, his future. Emily? She saw her as a placeholder, something temporary, sentimental, and weak. When Ryan bought the Beverly Hills mansion, Vanessa celebrated more than Emily did. Los Angeles meant distance. Distance meant influence. Influence meant control. During meetings, she sat closer to Ryan. During parties, she introduced herself as someone deeply trusted by the Maxwell brand. She even moved into a sleek condo 10 minutes from the mansion, calling the location strategic for PR emergencies. But no one knew the truth. Vanessa planned everything. She researched Emily, her past, her medical records, her father's wealth. She noted every crack in the marriage. She learned Emily was pregnant again. That detail irritated her more than anything. Another child meant more emotional baggage, more public image complications, more reasons for Ryan to feel tied down. Vanessa was not going to let that happen. So she began whispering ideas that sounded like business decisions, but were actually personal attacks. A custody battle could tank your stock. Divorce might raise questions during your next investor round. A scandal involving a pregnant wife could destroy you. She never told Ryan what to do. She simply let him believe the dark thoughts were his own. And the more pressure he felt, the more Vanessa became the voice he trusted. The night of the party in Beverly Hills, Vanessa didn't just attend, she orchestrated. The guest list, the conversations, even the timing of certain toasts. Everything was arranged to make Ryan feel like Emily didn't fit into this world anymore. And Emily, standing alone in her own house with swollen feet and a tired smile, didn't even realize the trap already forming around her. And Vanessa's next move would push Ryan past the point of no return. The Beverly Hills mansion had never looked more breathtaking than it did that night. Soft gold lights under the eaves, candles flickering along the patio, champagne glasses still half full on marble counters. But beneath the glamour, something darker pulsed like an undercurrent waiting to pull Emily under. The last guests had drifted out, their luxury cars rolling down the long driveway until only silence remained. Emily should have felt relief. Instead, she felt the air tighten around her. She stood in the hallway, one hand resting on her belly, trying to ease the dull ache low in her back. She replayed moments from the evening. Ryan's distant smile, Vanessa's hand lingering on his arm, the way both of them kept stepping away for whispered conversations. Emily felt like a ghost drifting through her own gathering, invisible even to the man who once swore she was his whole world. Lily had fallen asleep hours earlier after chasing Bubbles across the patio. Emily had carried her inside, brushing dirt from her dress, whispering lullabies until the little girl's breathing slowed. For a few minutes, she felt peace. But now, as she walked downstairs into the dim glow of the living room, that peace vanished. Ryan was already there. He stood by the bar cart, pouring himself another drink. The ice clinked sharply against the glass. He didn't look up when she entered. Emily's heart tightened. She knew that version of him, the version that shut her out so completely she felt like she was speaking through glass. "I didn't see you much tonight," she said softly. Ryan downed the drink in one swallow. "Busy. I know. It's just—" Her voice faltered. "You didn't even check on Lily." Ryan finally looked at her, eyes cold, expression unreadable. She was fine. Emily swallowed. The temperature in the room felt suddenly colder. She drew in a slow breath. "Ryan, talk to me. Something's been off for months. You come home late, you barely speak to me, and—" "Don't start," he snapped, pressing 2 fingers to his forehead. "Not tonight." Emily stepped closer. "I'm your wife. I'm pregnant with your child. Why can't you just tell me what's going on?" Ryan stiffened. Emily saw his jaw clench. He set the empty glass down too hard, the sound echoing through the room. "You want the truth?" he muttered. "Yes," Emily whispered. "Please." Before he could answer, heels clicked across the marble. Vanessa entered the room as if she owned it, holding her clutch against her hip. Her lipstick was still perfect, her confidence even more so. "Oh, didn't know you were still up," she said sweetly, but the sweetness was razor thin. Emily stepped back instinctively. "It's my house," she said quietly. Vanessa smiled, slow and chilling. "Of course." Ryan didn't look at Emily, he looked at Vanessa. Something inside Emily cracked open. That single glance, comfortable, familiar, told her more than a confession ever could. Vanessa moved closer to Ryan, lowering her voice in a way that made Emily's stomach twist. "We should wrap up those projections before the call tomorrow." Ryan nodded. Emily stared at him, her voice trembling. "Are you kidding me? She's still here? At midnight? After everyone else left?" Vanessa lifted one eyebrow. "Business doesn't follow bedtime, Emily." "So you two work together alone now?" Emily whispered. "All the time?" Ryan hesitated. It was enough. Emily felt her pulse surge painfully. "How long?" she choked out. "Ryan, how long has this been happening?" Ryan opened his mouth, but no words came. Vanessa laughed softly. "This shouldn't be a surprise." Emily's vision blurred. She pressed a hand to her belly as if shielding the baby from the truth. "Ryan," she whispered, voice breaking, "please say something." But Ryan remained silent. That silence was the answer. The moment it settled, Emily felt the floor shift beneath her feet, not physically, but in a way that warned her something irreversible had begun. And she had no idea the night was about to turn violent. Emily stood frozen in the center of the living room, her breath shaking, her pulse pounding painfully in her ears. The world around her felt distorted, as if someone had pulled the floor out from beneath her and replaced it with air. She had suspected the affair, yes, but hearing nothing from Ryan, seeing him let Vanessa speak for him, was like being stabbed in slow motion. Her legs trembled. She took a step back, hand instinctively covering her belly. "I trusted you," she whispered, voice cracking. "I defended you. I gave up everything for this family. For you." Ryan looked away, jaw tight, eyes narrowed as if her pain was an inconvenience. Vanessa let out a small sigh, the kind meant to provoke. "Emily, you're emotional. It happens. Pregnancy hormones can make things feel—" "Don't," Emily snapped, surprising even herself. "Don't talk about my pregnancy. Don't talk about my marriage. Don't talk about my life as if you have any right to it." For a moment, something flickered in Vanessa's eyes, annoyance, maybe even fear, but she masked it with a smirk. Ryan rubbed his temples, stepping away as if the two women were noise he wanted to shut out. "I can't do this tonight," he muttered. "I have an early morning." Emily stared at him, disbelief burning through her. "That's all you have to say? After everything?" "Emily," he sighed sharply, "you're making a scene." The words sliced her open. A scene. That's all he saw. Not her shaking hands, not her breaking heart, not the baby inside her who deserved a family that wasn't fractured by lies. Her vision blurred. She felt dizzy. Vanessa stepped closer to Ryan, her perfume sweet and suffocating. "Ryan, just go upstairs. I'll handle this." Handle. The word made Emily's skin crawl. Ryan nodded and walked away without looking back, without asking if she was okay, without checking on the child she was carrying. His footsteps faded up the staircase, and with each step, Emily felt another piece of her crumble. The moment he disappeared, Vanessa's smile vanished completely. "You need to stop clinging to something that's already over," she said lowly. "Ryan is moving forward. You're stuck in the past." Emily felt her knees weaken. She gripped the back of the sofa for balance. "You don't get to decide what happens to my family." Vanessa's expression sharpened. "I'm not deciding. He is, and he's finally choosing what's best for his career. You're a liability." The word hit Emily like a slap. A liability, a burden, an obstacle. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even during her poorest days in Brooklyn. Tears welled up, hot and humiliating. She hated crying in front of Vanessa, but she couldn't stop it. Every breath felt like a battle. Vanessa continued, voice icy. "You think powerful men stay with women who slow them down? Emily, look at yourself. You're exhausted, overwhelmed, pregnant." She shrugged casually. "He needs clarity. You bring chaos." Emily pressed a trembling hand to her chest. "I am carrying his child. And that's exactly why he's stressed," Vanessa answered. "Another baby? More responsibilities? More reasons for the press to dig into your past, your father, your finances? It's messy." Emily stared at her, heart pounding too fast, vision tunneling. She felt the room spinning. She needed air, she needed space, she needed something. Vanessa leaned closer, her whisper cold enough to freeze blood. "If I were you, I'd start packing. Before he asks someone else to do it for you." Emily's breath hitched, her throat tightened painfully. For the first time that night, a terrifying thought flickered in her mind. What if she really wasn't safe here? She backed away slowly, fear coiling inside her like a living thing. And upstairs, she heard Ryan moving, pacing, muttering something in his steps, off, agitated, dangerous. Emily felt her heart plummet, because the man coming down those stairs would not be the man she once knew. Ryan's footsteps thudded unevenly against the upstairs hallway, each step heavier than the last. Emily stood at the base of the staircase, her palms damp, her breathing shallow. Something was different about him, something she couldn't name but felt in her bones. His shadow stretched long across the wall before he appeared, shirt undone at the collar, eyes bloodshot, pupils too sharp. He looked like a man cornered by his own choices, desperate to claw his way out no matter who he hurt. Vanessa stayed behind, Emily, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But Emily could feel her satisfaction radiating like heat. Ryan descended the last few steps slowly, staring at Emily with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. "We need to talk," he said. Emily swallowed hard. "I've been trying to talk to you all night." Ryan ignored the comment and walked past her, heading toward the sliding glass doors that opened onto the balcony overlooking the garden. Without turning, he said, "Come here." The command chilled her. She hesitated. Vanessa's whisper brushed her ear. "Don't make him ask twice." Emily flinched. The air felt wrong, thick, dangerous. Still, she followed Ryan outside because she needed answers, and because part of her still hoped she was imagining the darkness she saw in his eyes. The balcony was lit by soft, recessed lights along the railing. From here, the garden below looked peaceful, the stone pathway shimmering in the moonlight. A gentle breeze rustled the tall hedges. It should have been calming, but Emily felt the hairs on her arms stand up. Ryan stood near the railing, back to her, fists clenched at his sides. "Ryan," she whispered, voice trembling, "please talk to me. Whatever is happening, we can fix it. We always have." He let out a bitter laugh. "No, not this time." Her heart stumbled. Why? He finally turned his head, profile sharp, jaw tight. "Because you're ruining everything." Emily blinked. "I'm ruining?" "The company is on the verge of expansion. Investors are watching my every move. Press coverage is brutal. Competitors are circling. And you." His voice cracked with anger. "You're dragging me down with your emotions, your needs, your constant presence." Emily pressed a hand to her belly in instinctive protection. "I'm your wife." He shook his head slowly, almost sadly, but there was no sadness in his eyes. "You were convenient once," Ryan said quietly. "Not anymore." For a moment, Emily forgot to breathe. Vanessa stepped onto the balcony then, her heels soft on the tile. "Ryan," she murmured, "you don't have to explain everything." Emily spun toward her. "What did you do to him? What have you been telling him?" Vanessa smiled, a thin, cruel curve. Nothing he didn't already believe. Emily felt her knees give slightly. She grabbed the railing for support. Ryan stepped closer. Too close. Emily could smell the alcohol on his breath, could see the wild desperation in his eyes. "You think I don't know your father has been investigating me?" he hissed. "You think I don't know the board is questioning my decisions because of your baggage? You think I don't see how every headline paints me as distracted because of my domestic issues?" Emily's stomach flipped. "My father, what does he have to do with any of this?" "Oh, don't pretend," Vanessa said lightly. "Richard Carter showing up in Los Angeles? That's not coincidence. He's trying to undermine Ryan. He's been doing it for months." Emily shook her head, trembling. "My father doesn't even talk to me." "Exactly," Ryan snapped. "So why is he suddenly sniffing around my business?" Emily opened her mouth, but before she could answer, Ryan stepped even closer, anger rising like a tide. "You ruined my life," he whispered. Emily froze. Those 4 words pierced her deeper than any betrayal. Then his expression shifted, subtle, chilling. A decision had been made, and Emily felt it. Her instincts screamed. Her breath caught, because the way he looked at her was the way a man looks before he does something unthinkable. Emily's pulse hammered against her ribs as Ryan's gaze pinned her to the balcony floor. The night air felt sharp, slicing into her lungs every time she tried to breathe. Somewhere inside the house, a clock ticked faintly, each second stretching the dread tighter and tighter inside her chest. She took a small step back, instinct warning her she needed distance, any distance from the man she once trusted with her life. "Ryan," she whispered, voice unsteady, "you don't mean that. You're angry, you're stressed. We can figure this out." He moved closer. Too close. His fingers twitched at his sides like he was restraining something dark, pressing to the surface. "You don't get it," he said, voice tremoring with a fury he barely kept contained. "I've carried you for years, protected you, provided for you. And what do I get in return? Dead weight." Emily's eyes burned. "I'm not dead weight. I'm your family." "Family," he repeated with venom, "is a liability when you're at the top." Vanessa leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, face lit faintly by the warm indoor lights behind her. "Ryan, she's not listening. Tell her the truth, so she stops assuming things." Emily turned to her, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "Why are you doing this? Why are you destroying my family?" Vanessa smirked. "Because ambition doesn't wait for anyone. You were in the way. And Ryan finally sees it." Emily felt the smallest flicker of anger beneath her terror. "You manipulated him." Vanessa's smirk widened. "No, dear. I simply revealed what he already wanted." Emily shook her head, breath catching. "You're wrong. He loved me." Ryan let out a short, humorless laugh. "Loved." Past tense. Emily's heart cracked with a slow, suffocating ache. She backed up until her spine brushed the cold glass railing. The drop below wasn't high enough to kill instantly, but it was high enough to break bones, high enough to end a pregnancy, high enough to silence someone. Ryan stepped closer, his face now inches from hers. "You're going to ruin everything," he whispered, his voice trembling with a sickening mixture of fear and rage. Richard sniffing around. "The board is starting to panic. If this family situation blows up publicly, I lose everything." Emily stared at him through tears. "So what? You're choosing her? Money? Ego?" "I'm choosing survival," Ryan hissed. Vanessa's voice floated from behind them. "It's simple math, Emily. You cost more than you're worth." Those words. That was when something inside Emily finally broke, not her spirit, but her tolerance. Something ignited. A spark of the woman she used to be, the fighter, the dreamer, rose inside her. But her resolve came seconds too late. Ryan grabbed her wrist. Hard. Emily gasped, the pain sharp. "Ryan, stop. You're hurting me." His fingers tightened. "You should have walked away when I asked you to." "You never asked," she cried. "I'm asking now." She pulled, but his grip only tightened. Panic surged through her. She could feel the edge of the railing pressing against her lower back, her stomach twisted in terror for the baby inside her. "Ryan, please," she sobbed. "Lily needs me. The baby, please." Her plea didn't reach him. He was too far gone. Behind him, Vanessa watched silently, her face unreadable until a faint flicker of triumph appeared in her eyes. The wind rushed louder. Emily's heart pounded harder. Ryan leaned in, his breath cold against her ear. "Goodbye, Emily." Her blood turned to ice. Her world shrank to a single heartbeat. A single terrifying second. Ryan's hands shifted, Emily's feet slipped, and the night around her shattered, because the push came faster than her scream could leave her throat. For one suspended, horrifying moment, Emily felt weightless. The world tilted, the night air ripped past her ears, and her scream tore from her throat too late to stop anything. The balcony lights blurred into streaks of gold. She reached instinctively for something, anything, but her hands sliced through empty air. Her stomach lurched violently, terror crushing her chest. She thought of Lily. She thought of the baby. She thought of how unfair it all was. Then impact. It wasn't the hard stone path. It wasn't cold marble or unforgiving tile. It was warmth. Strong arms. Emily gasped, body jolting as she landed not on the ground but against someone's chest. Her vision swam, pain shooting up her back, but she was alive. Alive. She blinked through tears, trying to focus. The familiar voice hit her like a miracle. "Emily, I've got you. You're safe." Her father? Richard. He stood beneath the balcony, breath heavy, arms locked around her. He must have seen the fall, must have moved without thinking, must have risked his own life to catch her. Her tears came hot and uncontrollable. "Dad, Daddy." "I'm here," he said, voice rough, holding her as if she were still his little girl. "I'm right here." Above them, Ryan appeared on the balcony, face twisted in shock, not guilt, not regret, but panic. Vanessa stepped beside him, eyes widening when she spotted Richard below. Richard looked up slowly, fury simmering beneath the surface like a volcano waiting to erupt. "Richard," Ryan stammered, voice cracking. This isn't what it looks like." She slipped. Emily tried to speak, but pain shot through her abdomen. Richard held her closer, his eyes never leaving Ryan's. "You tried to kill my daughter," Richard said, voice low, shaking with controlled rage. "I saw everything." Ryan froze. Vanessa's mask cracked for the first time. Richard carried Emily toward the garden steps, shouting for help. A security guard from down the driveway rushed over, stunned by the scene. "Call 911, Richard barked. "Now." Emily clung to her father's suit jacket, trembling uncontrollably. Fear, relief, and pain swirled through her, disorienting and overwhelming. "My baby," she whispered, clutching her stomach. "We're getting you to the hospital," Richard said firmly. "You and the baby will be okay. Stay with me, Emily." She nodded weakly, tears slipping down her cheeks. Behind them, Ryan scrambled, voice cracking as he tried to maintain control. "Richard, wait, we can talk about this." But Richard didn't even turn his head. Inside the house, Vanessa grabbed Ryan's arm. "Ryan, don't just stand there. We need a plan. Damage control, statement drafting, security footage." Her voice dissolved when Richard spun around, fire in his eyes. "There's audio on the balcony cameras," he said sharply. "Every word, every whisper, including that little goodbye you thought no one heard." The color drained from Ryan's face. "No. No. No." Vanessa stiffened. "He's bluffing," she muttered, though her voice betrayed fear. Richard lifted a small object from his pocket, a tiny device shaped like a USB. "One of your own staff handed me this tonight, said they didn't like what they were seeing between you two." Vanessa's mouth fell open. Ryan staggered back. Emily watched them from her father's arms, her world spinning, but her mind suddenly crystal clear. They weren't just monsters, they were scared monsters. Cowards. Sirens wailed in the distance. Lights flashed. Richard held her tighter as paramedics ran toward them. "You're safe," he whispered again. "I have you. I'm not letting go again." Emily closed her eyes, letting the tears fall freely. But even as they lifted her onto the stretcher, even as pain throbbed through every bone in her body, she felt something new rising inside her. Strength, determination, and a fury she never knew she possessed. Because Emily knew this wasn't the end, it was her turn to fight back. The hospital room was dim, quiet except for the steady hum of machines and the soft beeping that reassured Emily her baby was still alive. She lay propped up by pillows, pale but conscious, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. Her body ached with every breath, but something deeper, something fierce had awakened inside her. No more fear, no more silence, no more excuses for a man who never deserved her loyalty. Richard sat at her bedside, holding her free hand tightly. For hours, he had refused to leave, his eyes red from both anger and guilt. "Emily," he whispered, voice soft yet breaking. "I'm sorry for every moment I wasn't there. I'm sorry for letting you face this alone." She squeezed his hand weakly. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved your grandchild. That's all that matters now." Before Richard could answer, the door opened. Michael Hayes entered, tall, steady, composed in a way that calmed the entire room. He carried a folder under his arm and a quiet determination in his expression. "I've gathered everything," he said to Richard, then turned to Emily with gentle eyes. "How are you feeling?" "Sore," she admitted, "but alive." "And that," Michael said softly, "is already a victory." He placed the folder on the table. Inside were photos, time-stamped security footage, stills, emergency call logs, and statements from 2 staff members who had witnessed far too much over the past months. Solid evidence. Irrefutable. Emily swallowed, her heart tightening. "This is enough to put them both away?" Michael nodded firmly. "It's enough to bury them." Richard stood, jaw clenched. The protective fire in him was no longer silent. "He tried to kill my daughter. He thought he could erase her and get away with it." He glanced at Michael. "We go public. Full exposure." Michael's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile, already in motion. As if on cue, Emily heard a commotion outside the room. Raised voices. Footsteps. Then a nurse rushed in, breathless. "Miss Carter, you need to see this." The nurse wheeled a small TV stand forward and switched on a breaking news broadcast. Ryan's face filled the screen, pale, frantic, surrounded by police as he was handcuffed on the steps of his own mansion. Reporters shouted questions. Flashing cameras lit up his stunned, angry expression. Ryan Maxwell, tech billionaire, has been arrested on charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, and evidence tampering. Emily watched silently. Her heart didn't race, her hands didn't shake. She felt nothing but clarity. Vanessa appeared next on screen, being escorted out by investigators. Her confidence was gone, replaced by panic. She tried to cover her face, but cameras caught every second. Sources confirm that Vanessa Reed, PR director for Maxwell Tech, is also under investigation for orchestrating a targeted manipulation campaign and assisting in an alleged murder attempt. The anchor's voice faded into background noise as Emily closed her eyes briefly. She had imagined justice before, but never like this. Never so complete, never so public, never so deserved. She felt Richard's hand settle on her shoulder. "This is just the beginning," he said gently. "We're rebuilding your life now. Together." Emily opened her eyes. Michael stood quietly beside the bed, watching her with concern and something warmer, softer, unspoken. She offered him a tired smile. "Thank you for fighting for me, for us." Michael shook his head. You did the hardest part, Emily. You survived. Later that evening, after Richard stepped out to take a call, Michael lingered at her bedside. He hesitated, then spoke softly. When you're ready, if you ever want help rebuilding not just legally, but emotionally, I'm here. Emily felt her breath hitch, not from fear, but from something like hope. Real, new, unexpected hope. Maybe one day, she whispered, when life feels safe again. Michael smiled gently. I'll be right here when it does. As she lay back, listening to the heartbeat monitor syncing with her baby's steady rhythm, Emily felt the warmth of something she thought she had lost forever: peace. And for the first time in years, she believed that tomorrow could be beautiful. Because Emily's story was no longer about survival, it was about rising. The morning light filtered softly through the hospital blinds, painting warm stripes across the room. Emily woke to the distant hum of activity in the hallway and the steady rhythm of the fetal monitor beside her. For the first time, in what felt like forever, she wasn't waking to fear. She wasn't waking to Ryan's cold silence or Vanessa's sharp whispers hiding behind closed doors. She was waking to safety, thin, fragile, but real. Lily slept curled on a nearby recliner, her tiny hand still clutching the stuffed bunny Emily had brought from home. Someone, probably Richard, had tucked a blanket around her and placed a juice box beside her for when she woke. Emily's heart squeezed. Lily had already endured too much. Her little girl deserved the kind of life Ryan had never cared to give. A soft knock sounded on the door. Michael stepped inside, holding 2 cups of coffee. He offered one to Emily, placing it gently on the rolling table. "Decaf," he said with a small smile. "Doctor's orders." Emily's lips curved. "Thank you. Your father is downstairs making a statement," Michael explained. "He's handling everything so you don't have to." Emily nodded, grateful but anxious. "What's happening with the charges?" Michael pulled a chair beside her bed. He opened a thin binder filled with legal notes. "The evidence is stronger than we expected. A staff member came forward this morning. They saw Ryan grab your arm earlier that night before the balcony. Another worker overheard Vanessa pressuring him about removing obstacles. And the balcony audio." He paused, eyes softening. "It's unmistakable." Emily inhaled slowly. "So there's no way he can twist this anymore?" "No," Michael said firmly. "This time, the truth speaks louder than any PR spin." For a moment, she allowed herself to exhale the fear she'd been carrying for months. But then a new worry emerged. What about the company? The press? Will they blame me? "Emily," Michael said gently, "you didn't bring this onto yourself." He did. "And the board? They're already distancing themselves from him. Your father will likely have influence over the restructuring. You're not going to be painted as the villain. You're the survivor." Survivor. The word settled somewhere deep in her. The door opened again, and Richard entered, his expression a mix of relief and exhaustion. He approached the bed and brushed a stray hair away from Emily's forehead, something he hadn't done since she was little. "I spoke to the press," he said. "I told them you're focusing on recovery and protecting your children. That's all they need to know." Emily nodded, tears gathering. "Dad, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Richard said softly. "I failed you once. I won't do it again." Before Emily could reply, Lily stirred and let out a tiny whimper. Emily reached over, smoothing her hair. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered. "Mommy's right here." Lily climbed into the bed carefully, hugging Emily around the waist. Emily held her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of bubblegum shampoo. She felt the baby move gently beneath her hand, reminding her of everything she still had to fight for. Richard watched them with soft eyes. "Your home is ready whenever you want it," he said. "No pressure, just safety." Emily nodded. "I think I will need it. At least for a while." Michael rose, giving her space, but before stepping out, he paused at the door. "Emily, one more thing." She looked up. He hesitated, then spoke with quiet conviction. "When the world turned its back on you, you didn't break. That strength, not Ryan, not the company, not the press, belongs to you. And whatever comes next, you won't be facing it alone." Emily felt something warm settle in her chest, hope steady and growing. And for the first time, she began to see a future beyond the ruins. Emily was released from the hospital 4 days later, still tender, still bruised, but walking on her own 2 feet. Richard insisted on bringing her home in his private car, a quiet black sedan with soft leather seats and tinted windows that shielded her from the flashes of paparazzi outside. Officers formed a protective path as she stepped inside, holding Lily's hand. The world now knew her story. Reporters crowded the sidewalks with microphones, shouting questions, twisting narratives. But Emily kept her chin lifted. She wouldn't let strangers define her pain. The ride to Richard's townhouse in Manhattan felt like slipping into a different universe. The city skyline rose outside the window, steady, familiar, grounding. She remembered living here years ago, before Ryan's empire, before Beverly Hills, before the lies swallowed her whole. Lily sat beside her, clutching Emily's arm, eyes wide but calmer than before. The stuffed bunny rested in her lap, its fur slightly matted from hospital hugs. At the townhouse, Richard's staff hurried forward to help. They'd prepared everything: a peaceful bedroom, soft lighting, children's toys, warm blankets. Emily sank onto the bed, exhaustion washing over her. But it wasn't the fear-driven exhaustion she had lived with for months. This was different. Safer. Gentle. Michael arrived that evening with updates. He carried legal documents, but he also brought Lily a small box of crayons and a sketchbook, which made the little girl beam shyly. Emily watched the exchange and felt something warm press behind her ribs. Ryan had his bail hearing today, Michael said as he sat across from her. It didn't go well. The judge denied bail completely. Too many risks: flight risk, danger to you, danger to the kids. Emily didn't flinch at the phrase, danger to the kids. She knew it was true. She had lived it. And Vanessa, she whispered. Cooperating, Michael said, or at least pretending to. She's trying to save herself, but the evidence is stacked too high. He opened his folder and slid a sheet toward her. Richard wanted you to see this. It was a printed screenshot, an email from Vanessa to Ryan, dated 2 weeks before the attack. A single line burned across the page. She won't go quietly. You need to end this before it destroys everything. Emily felt cold. Michael watched her carefully. This email proves premeditation. Even if she tries to blame Ryan for everything, she's tied in. They go down together. Emily nodded slowly, gripping the edges of the paper. Good. Michael blinked, surprised by the firmness in her voice. She set the paper aside. What happens next? Court proceedings. Media storms. But Richard has hired additional security for you and Lily, and I'll be handling your case personally. We're building a civil suit. You'll get compensation, protection, and closure. Emily inhaled, letting the word settle. Closure. She had never believed she'd get any. That night, after Lily fell asleep curled beside her, Emily walked quietly into the small balcony overlooking the townhouse garden. The air was cool, filled with the distant hum of traffic. She leaned against the railing, not in fear this time, but in strength. Her hand rested gently on her stomach. The baby fluttered softly beneath her palm. You're safe, she whispered. We're safe. She heard the glass door slide open behind her. Michael stepped out, hesitant. Did I interrupt? Emily shook her head. No, I just needed a moment. He moved beside her, keeping a respectful distance. You know, he said softly, I've worked with many victims, people who survived impossible things. But the way you're holding yourself, it's remarkable. Emily looked down, her voice quiet. I didn't feel strong. Not then. You don't have to feel strong to be strong, he replied. Something in his tone, warm, steady, sincere, wrapped around her like comfort she hadn't let herself feel in years. Emily turned toward him. Michael? He met her eyes gently. Yeah? She hesitated only a moment. I'm not ready for anything new, but I'm grateful you're here. He gave a small, genuine smile. I'm not going anywhere. And Emily felt for the first time in a long time something blooming inside her that wasn't fear. Because her life wasn't just starting over, it was opening. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, legal meetings, and quiet moments of healing. Emily stayed mostly inside Richard's townhouse, protected by security posted discreetly at every entrance. The world outside was roaring, every news outlet dissecting the scandal, every headline using words like attempted murder, billionaire downfall, PR corruption. But inside these walls, life softened. Lily colored for hours on the living room rug. Emily rested, drank warm tea, and tried to remember how to breathe without fear. One morning, as sunlight streamed through tall windows, Richard sat across from her with a stack of documents. "There's something else you need to know," he said gently. Emily straightened, tension creeping into her shoulders. "Something bad?" "Not bad," Richard said. "Just important." He slid a folder toward her. She opened it slowly. Inside were old letters, dozens of them addressed to her in careful handwriting. Her breath caught. These are mine." Richard nodded. "The ones you sent me, the ones I never answered properly." Emily blinked, confused. "Dad, I never sent these." Richard exhaled. "I know. I figured that out last night." Emily flipped through the letters unmailed, never opened, each envelope sealed, each addressed to her father. Her heart pounded. "If I didn't send them, who did?" "Ryan," Richard said quietly. "We found a storage box in one of his East Coast offices. These were inside. Along with gift boxes from me to you and Lily, boxes that were never opened, letters I wrote that never reached you." Emily's breath trembled. "He hid them." Richard nodded, eyes heavy. "He controlled your connection to me. He kept us apart intentionally, financially, emotionally, strategically." The realization hit her like a punch to the chest. All those years she believed her father didn't care. All those nights she cried alone, thinking she had lost him. All the distance she felt growing between them. It wasn't distance. It was sabotage. Emily pressed a hand to her mouth, tears flooding her eyes. "Dad, I thought you didn't want me anymore." Richard reached across the table, taking her trembling hands. "Emily, I never stopped wanting you. I never stopped loving you. I wrote you every month. I sent gifts. I tried to call, but your number changed." He blocked every attempt. Her tears spilled over. "He isolated me." Richard squeezed her hands. "But you're not isolated anymore." Emily nodded slowly, letting the truth settle, painful but clarifying. Ryan hadn't just betrayed her as a husband. He had manipulated her world until she stood alone, believing she had no one but him. That control had been deliberate, calculated, cruel. Michael entered then, carrying a laptop. His expression shifted when he saw the tears on Emily's face, but she shook her head gently. "I'm okay," she whispered. "Just learning the truth." Michael sat beside her. "There's more truth coming." He opened the laptop. A paused video appeared on screen, security footage from the night of the incident. Emily stiffened. "You don't have to watch this," Michael said softly. "I do," she whispered. "I need to see it." He pressed play. There it was, the balcony. Ryan's face contorted with rage, Vanessa lurking behind him like a shadow, Emily's own frightened figure, the words, the push, the fall, Richard's gasp. The desperate catch. Michael paused the video. Emily wiped her tears. "Steady now. This is enough to bury them both." Michael nodded, completely. For a long moment, Emily stared at the frozen frame on the screen. Then she inhaled deeply, shoulders straightening. "I want to testify," she said. Richard and Michael exchanged glances. "I want to face him," Emily continued, "not as his victim, as the woman who survived him." Michael's expression softened, proud. "You're stronger than you know." Emily met his eyes. "No," she said quietly. "I finally know exactly how strong I am." And her decision would set the stage for a reckoning no one could escape. The courthouse in downtown Manhattan loomed like a stone giant, cold, imposing, impossible to ignore. Dozens of reporters crowded the steps, cameras ready, microphones lifted, waiting for the next headline-breaking moment. And today, they would get one. Because today, for the first time since the night she nearly died, Emily Carter was going to face Ryan Maxwell. Inside the secure black SUV, Emily sat beside Richard and Michael, breathing slowly. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady. She wore a simple navy dress, comfortable shoes, and her hair in a soft braid, no glamour, no spectacle. She wanted the world to see her as she was, a mother, a survivor, a woman reclaiming her voice. Lily was safely home with a trusted nanny, unaware of the storm her mother was about to walk into. Emily carried a small photo of her daughter in her bag, a reminder of why she couldn't back down now. As the SUV rolled to a stop, Richard touched her arm. "Are you ready?" Emily nodded. Finally, security escorted them through a side entrance, avoiding the chaos outside. The hallway hummed with tension, shuffling papers, clicking heels, officers murmuring into radios. Michael walked ahead, carrying files thick with evidence. When they reached the victim waiting room, Emily paused by the window. The courthouse courtyard below pulsed with reporters. "It feels strange," she whispered. "The whole world knows what happened, but they don't know me." Michael turned toward her. "They'll know you after today, not as a headline, as the woman who stood up and told the truth." Emily exhaled shakily. "He's going to look at me." "Yes," Michael said, "but he won't have the power to touch you ever again." A knock sounded. An officer peeked in. "We're ready for you, Miss Carter." Emily's heart thudded. She stepped toward the courtroom. The door opened, and there he was. Ryan Maxwell sat at the defense table, flanked by attorneys who looked more frightened than confident. His hair was unkempt, his suit rumpled, his eyes hollow. He looked like a man who had finally realized his kingdom had crumbled. When he saw her walk in, he stiffened. Emily didn't look away. Vanessa sat beside him, hands cuffed, face pale. Gone was the woman dripping with confidence and manipulation. Her lipstick was faded, her eyes sunken. She looked at Emily with something between fear and hatred, and Emily felt nothing for her at all. She took her seat at the witness stand, fingers steady on the edge of the wooden railing. The judge entered. The room rose, proceedings began. When it was Emily's turn, the courtroom fell silent. Michael approached with a reassuring nod. "Miss Carter," he began softly, "can you tell us what happened the night of the incident?" Emily lifted her chin, and she told them everything. Her voice didn't shake. Not once. She described the tension, the confrontation, Ryan's words, Vanessa's threats, the pressure on the balcony, the moment Ryan grabbed her, the whisper of "goodbye," the fall, and her father catching her. Gasps echoed. One juror covered her mouth. Even the judge's expression tightened. Then the prosecutor played the audio from the balcony camera. The room froze at the unmistakable sound of Ryan's voice saying, "Goodbye, Emily." Ryan's head dropped into his hands. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, not of remorse, but of realization that everything was over. Michael whispered, "You're doing incredible," as he passed the podium. Emily finished her testimony with steady words. "I'm not here because I hate him. I'm here because he tried to erase me. And I won't let my daughter grow up in a world where silence protects men like him." The courtroom buzzed. The judge tapped her gavel for order. Emily stepped down, feeling lighter than she had in years. As she walked past Ryan, he lifted his face, eyes red, voice cracking. "Emily, please." She stopped, looked at him, and said the words that finally closed the chapter. "You lost the right to ask anything of me." Then she walked away, and the verdict that followed would shake the entire courtroom. The jury returned faster than anyone expected. Emily sat between Richard and Michael, hands clasped tightly in her lap. The courtroom buzzed with tense murmurs as reporters scribbled notes, cameras ready to explode the moment the verdict was read. Emily felt her heartbeat in her throat, not fear of losing, but fear of reliving everything again in the seconds before closure finally arrived. Ryan sat hunched at the defense table, his once perfect posture collapsed into something defeated. His expensive suit hung awkwardly on him now, like he no longer fit inside the body he had crafted for power. Vanessa sat beside him, mascara smudged, jaw clenched, fingers trembling around the edge of her cuffed wrists. They weren't a team anymore, just two selfish people terrified of the consequences they'd created. The bailiff stepped forward. "All rise." The jurors filed in, faces unreadable. Emily's stomach knotted. Michael leaned closer and whispered, "No matter what happens, you've already won. You're here, alive, strong." She nodded, breathing slowly. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict?" The forewoman stood, holding a slip of paper. "Yes, Your Honor, we have." Emily's pulse thudded. "On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree. How do you find the defendant, Ryan Maxwell?" The forewoman lifted her chin. "Guilty." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Emily closed her eyes, a single tear slipping free, not from sadness, but from release. From truth. From justice finally speaking her name. Ryan's lawyer slumped. Ryan himself went rigid, breath leaving his lungs in a broken exhale. His face twisted anger, disbelief, and something that looked frighteningly close to regret, though Emily knew regret had never lived inside him before today. and on the charge of conspiracy to commit harm and evidence tampering. How do you find the defendants, Ryan Maxwell and Vanessa Reed? Guilty on all counts. Vanessa inhaled sharply, shaking her head. No, this is wrong. He dragged me into this. This isn't. Her voice cracked into panic. Ryan, tell them I. But Ryan didn't even look at her. The judge struck her gavel sharply. Order in the courtroom. Vanessa collapsed back into her chair, eyes wide, breathing fast, as if the walls had suddenly closed around her. The judge continued, voice firm. Sentencing will proceed immediately. Emily held Richard's hand under the table. Michael rested a supportive palm on her shoulder. The judge glanced at Ryan, her expression stern. Mr. Maxwell, your actions demonstrated extreme disregard for human life. You attempted to murder your pregnant wife, an act both cruel and premeditated. You manipulated her, isolated her, and nearly destroyed her family. The court sentences you to 38 years in a state correctional facility, without possibility of early parole. Emily exhaled shakily. 38 years, enough time for Lily to grow up safe, enough time for Emily to rebuild. The judge turned to Vanessa. Miss Reed, your role, while secondary, contributed significantly to the outcome. You fueled manipulation, encouraged harmful actions, and participated in covering up the crime. You are hereby sentenced to 12 years. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, real ones, this time. But Emily felt nothing. Vanessa's pain wasn't hers to carry. As guards moved forward, Ryan suddenly stood, voice cracking. Emily, please, don't let them take me. The courtroom froze. Emily rose slowly, staring at the man she once loved. I didn't do this to you, she said softly. You did. He shook his head like a desperate child. I wasn't thinking. I snapped. Emily, please. But Emily lifted a hand. And for the first time, he fell silent. You tried to kill me, she said. You tried to kill our children. I will never forgive that. Ryan's shoulders collapsed. The guards grabbed his arms, pulling him toward the exit as cameras flashed wildly. Emily watched him go, watched the door close behind him. And in that moment, she felt a weight lift from her chest, not slowly, but completely, like a cage door finally swinging open. Michael leaned close. It's over, he whispered. Emily nodded. No, she said quietly. It's finally beginning. Because justice had been served, and her new life could finally rise from the ashes. After the verdict, the world around Emily transformed almost overnight. Headlines shifted from shock to admiration, from scandal to survival. News anchors spoke her name with sympathy, activists praised her courage, and women across the country began sending handwritten letters to Richard's townhouse, letters filled with gratitude, solidarity, and quiet confessions of their own hidden battles. Emily read each one slowly, tears forming, realizing her story had become something larger than the nightmare she'd endured. It had become hope. Inside the townhouse, life settled into a new rhythm. Lily laughed again, really laughed, her little voice echoing down the hallway as she played with crayons and stuffed animals. The baby moved more often now, gentle flutters, reminding Emily of the life she was fighting to build. Every flutter felt like a promise. One crisp afternoon, Michael visited with documents tucked under his arm. Emily was sitting in the sunlit study, reviewing children's books she wanted to read to Lily. The light caught her hair just right, softening her features. She looked peaceful, something Michael hadn't seen on her face since the day they met. He cleared his throat gently. I didn't mean to interrupt. Emily smiled. You're not. Come in. He set the documents on the table. These are updates from the civil case. The financial settlement will be large. Very large. You'll be fully secure your children too. Emily nodded slowly. Money used to intimidate her. Now it simply felt like protection. Thank you, Michael. For everything. He shook his head. You don't have to thank me. I'm doing my job. No, she whispered, meeting his eyes. You're doing much more than that. For a moment, silence stretched between them comfortably. Michael studied her quietly, as though memorizing the steadiness she had grown into. He admired her strength, yes, but also her gentleness, her resilience, her ability to rise again without bitterness corroding her heart. Emily, he began softly, there's something else we need to discuss. She straightened. Something wrong? No, he said quickly. Good, actually. He opened another file. The board from Ryan's company reached out. They want to offer you a position, something advisory, flexible hours. Your father recommended you. Emily blinked. Me? Why? Because you have a voice now, Michael said simply. A powerful one. And because the company wants to rebuild its image with integrity, they see you as part of that. Emily swallowed, stunned. I never imagined. I'm not a business expert. You survived the worst form of corporate corruption, Michael said. You understand manipulation. You understand truth. That's more valuable than any textbook. Emily looked down at her hands. For years, Ryan made her feel small, unimportant, replaceable. But here she was being invited to help rebuild the empire he lost. It was poetic, powerful, healing. I'll think about it, she whispered. That's all they ask, Michael said. That evening, Richard arrived home carrying a bag of groceries, something he insisted on doing himself despite having staff. Cooking dinner, he announced. Real dinner. None of that pre-made nonsense. Emily laughed lightly. Dad, you burn pasta. I'll burn it with love, he replied. The three of them, Emily, Richard, and Michael, ended up in the kitchen together. Lily drew pictures at the table. Michael chopped vegetables. Richard pretended to supervise but mostly made jokes. For the first time in years, Emily felt surrounded by warmth that wasn't forced. She felt part of a home, not a cage. Later, after dinner, she stepped onto the balcony. The evening breeze brushed her face, carrying the scent of fresh rain. Lights twinkled across Manhattan's skyline. She placed a hand on her stomach, smiling softly. You're coming into a better world, she whispered to her unborn child. I promise. Behind her, the balcony door opened. Michael stepped out, hesitated, then approached her with slow, respectful steps. You okay? Emily turned toward him, feeling a quiet certainty settle inside her. I think, she said gently, for the first time in a long time, I really am. Michael smiled, warm, steady, unhurried. And Emily felt a future unfolding. Because her heart wasn't just healing, it was opening to something new. Winter settled softly over Manhattan, dusting the rooftops with pale frost and turning the townhouse windows into glowing squares of warmth. Emily sat in the living room, sorting through Lily's toys while the faint scent of cinnamon from the kitchen drifted through the air. She felt calmer these days, steady, anchored, almost whole. Life had rebuilt itself in quiet, meaningful pieces. Every morning brought small joys: Lily's laughter, the baby's gentle kicks, Richard's attempts at breakfast, and Michael's steady presence that warmed the house without ever demanding space. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights, the memories crept back: Ryan's voice, the cold railing against her spine, the sensation of falling. Yet each time fear surfaced, something else rose to meet it: strength, and not just hers, her father's, Lily's, Michael's. She was held by people who truly cared. One afternoon, a letter arrived, hand-delivered by a uniformed officer. Richard opened it, scanned the contents, and his jaw tightened. Emily, he said quietly, this is from the prison. Her breath hitched. Ryan? Richard nodded. He wrote you a letter. Do you want it? Emily stared at the envelope. Her instinct was to refuse. To burn it, to pretend his existence no longer touched hers. But something inside her whispered that closure wasn't avoidance. Closure was facing the last remaining shadow. I'll read it, she said softly. Richard handed her the envelope and stepped aside, giving her space. Emily sat down, hands trembling as she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was messy, frantic. Emily, I don't know why I'm writing this. They said there's no point. But I need you to know I wasn't myself. I was under pressure. Vanessa pushed me. The board pushed me. The world pushed me. I made mistakes. I lost control. I didn't mean to. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Please send updates about the kids. I need something to hold on to. Ryan. Emily read the words twice. Not one real apology. Not one acknowledgement of what he'd done. Just excuses. She folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. When she looked up, Richard and Michael were watching her concerned, waiting. I'm done, she whispered. I don't need anything from him. Not regret. Not explanations. Nothing. Michael stepped closer, voice gentle. Do you want me to respond on your behalf? She shook her head. No, let the silence speak. Richard placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. I'm proud of you. She smiled faintly. I'm finally proud of myself. Over the next weeks, life continued to shift. Emily began informal Zoom meetings with the company board, exploring the advisory role. She discovered she had a natural ability to read people, spot manipulation, and speak calmly with clarity. Her voice carried weight not because she demanded authority, but because she had earned it. One evening, after Lily went to bed, Emily stepped outside to the small courtyard behind the townhouse. Snowflakes drifted slowly, melting on her coat. She felt peaceful, almost serene. Then she heard footsteps. Michael approached, hands tucked in his coat pockets, breath forming soft clouds in the cold air. Couldn't sleep? He asked gently. Just thinking, she replied. About everything. How much has changed, how much I've changed. He nodded. You've come a long way. So have you, she said, smiling. You've been here every step. Michael hesitated, then looked at her with a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. Emily, I don't want to cross any lines. I know you're healing. I know timing matters. But I need to say something. She turned fully toward him. Yes? I care about you, he said quietly, more than I probably should. The world felt very still. Emily's breath trembled, but not from fear. I know, she whispered, and I care about you too. He didn't move closer. He didn't assume. He simply offered a soft, hopeful smile. When you're ready, Michael said. No rush. I'll be here. Emily felt warmth spread through her, a gentle, honest warmth. Maybe, she whispered, I'm closer to ready than I thought. Snow fell around them, soft as forgiveness. Because love was returning to her life, not fast, not forced, but real. Spring arrived slowly in Manhattan, washing the city in soft sunlight and fresh breezes that carried hints of possibility. Trees along the streets bloomed pale pink, and the townhouse windows stayed open longer each day. Emily felt the season shifting inside her too quietly, steadily, like her heart was thawing after a long winter. She was still healing, but she was no longer afraid of the future. Now, she was curious about it. One bright morning, Michael picked her up for a meeting with the board. It was her first time visiting the company's Manhattan headquarters since everything happened. She hesitated at the glass entrance, the building towering above her like a monument to the past she'd escaped. But Michael offered his arm, not forcefully, just gently, and she accepted. Together, they stepped inside. The board meeting went better than she expected. These were the same people who once smiled politely at her during company parties, seeing her only as the billionaire's wife. Now, they greeted her with respect. Real respect. They asked for her insight. They valued her perspective on ethics, safety, and culture topics Ryan never cared about, but Emily understood deeply. After the meeting ended, one board member approached her privately. Miss Carter, he said softly, your voice is exactly what this company needs. If you accept the advisory role, it won't just be symbolic. You'll have influence. You'll help us build something better. Emily nodded, overwhelmed but grateful. As she and Michael stepped outside, sunlight warmed her face. She looked up at the sky. I never imagined I'd step into this world like this. You earned it, Michael said, hands in his pockets. And you shine in it. Emily felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the baby. Later that day, they strolled through Central Park. Lily skipped ahead, chasing pigeons while holding her stuffed bunny, its ears flopping wildly. Emily walked slowly, both hands around her belly, feeling the baby's soft movements. Michael walked beside her, close enough to be comforting, far enough to be respectful. What are you thinking about? He asked gently. Life, she answered. How strange it is that everything I thought was the end turned out to be the beginning. Michael nodded. Sometimes we have to lose what was never meant for us to find what is. Emily smiled. You sound like a therapist. Maybe I missed my calling. They both laughed softly. The sound felt natural, like they had always been walking side by side on paths they didn't know were leading toward each other. As they reached the Bethesda fountain, Lily ran up to them. Mommy, look, I drew a family. She held up her sketchbook, crayon figures, 3 of them. One was clearly Emily, one was Lily. And the third? Emily felt her breath stick. The third was Michael. She glanced at him quickly, startled, but he was watching Lily with a gentle, almost shy smile. I like your drawing, he said softly. Can I be part of your family picture? Lily nodded enthusiastically. You help Mommy, that's what family does. Emily swallowed, touched so deeply she couldn't speak for a moment. She crouched down, cupping Lily's cheeks. Baby, family can look like many things. But you're right, kindness makes someone family. When she stood again, Michael was watching her with a look she couldn't quite read. Warmth, admiration, and something more, something careful and patient. I'm not trying to replace anything, he said quietly. Or anyone. I know, she whispered. That's why it feels safe. He exhaled a breath of relief. They walked home slowly, Lily skipping between them. The sun dipped lower, washing the city in gold. Emily felt the baby shift inside her again, strong and steady. She glanced sideways at Michael. Maybe, she began softly, I am ready. For something more. Michael stopped walking, eyes widening in surprise. Emily, are you sure? She nodded, a gentle smile forming. Yes, because this time it feels right. And as the evening breeze wrapped around them, Emily felt the world aligning in ways she never believed it could. Because love was no longer a memory, it was her future taking shape. Summer arrived warm and bright, and with it came a gentle shift in Emily's life, something tender, certain, and beautifully undeniable. Michael had become a constant presence, not out of obligation or guilt, but because he truly cared. He came by with groceries, reviewed her advisory briefs, played board games with Lily, and made Emily laugh in ways she hadn't laughed since her early Brooklyn days. He never pushed, never assumed, never demanded. His tenderness was the opposite of everything she had endured. One June afternoon, Richard announced he wanted to take Emily and Lily to the Hamptons for a weekend getaway. Fresh air, he insisted. Salt water. Quiet. You need it. And Emily did. So they packed light and drove out of the city in a sleek SUV. Richard arranged privacy glass, soft leather, and enough space for a pregnant woman to stretch comfortably. Michael joined them the next morning, invited by Richard, though the older man pretended it was simply for legal discussions. Emily knew better. She saw the way her father's eyes softened when Michael spoke to Lily, the way he stepped aside whenever Emily and Michael shared quiet moments. It was Richard's silent blessing, something Emily never expected but deeply cherished. The Hamptons' house was peaceful, surrounded by tall seagrass and the sound of crashing waves. On the second evening, after Lily fell asleep curled with her stuffed bunny, Emily stepped onto the back deck. The ocean wind brushed her hair. The sky was painted in orange and violet, the horizon glowing. She heard the sliding door open behind her. Michael stepped out, hands tucked in his pockets. Richard fell asleep reading to Lily, he said with a chuckle. Out cold, book still open. Emily smiled. She exhausts him. She exhausts me too, Michael joked softly. But in the best way. They stood for a moment, listening to the waves. Emily placed one hand over her belly as a strong kick pressed from inside. Can I? Michael asked quietly. She nodded. He stepped closer, placing his hand gently on her stomach. His breath caught when the baby kicked again. Wow, he whispered. That's incredible. Emily looked up at him, a soft warmth rising in her chest. It still amazes me. Michael hesitated, then met her eyes. Emily, there's something I need to ask. Her heart fluttered, but not from fear this time. Yes, I want to be in your life, he said slowly. In this life. Not as your lawyer. Not as someone standing on the sidelines, but as someone who cares about you. Who cares about Lily. About the baby. I know everything you've been through. I know you're cautious, and I'll wait as long as you need, but I want to build something with you. Emily inhaled shakily, tears forming not from pain, but from emotion so pure it startled her. Michael, she whispered, you've already been building something with me. Every day. He swallowed, hope flickering across his face. Does that mean? It means yes, she said softly. Yes, I want a life with you. I'm ready. Michael exhaled a breath he'd been holding for months. Then he took her hand slowly, reverently, as if it were something precious. Emily stepped closer, leaning her head against his chest. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her with the perfect blend of gentleness and certainty. For the first time in years, she felt completely safe in someone's arms. No tension, no fear, only warmth. The waves crashed softly, a rhythm steady and ancient. The breeze carried the scent of ocean salt and blooming summer flowers. In the distance, The lights of neighboring houses flickered like small, peaceful stars. "Michael?" Emily whispered. "Yeah? Thank you," she said softly, "for giving me a reason to believe in love again." He kissed the top of her head, a delicate, intentional gesture. "Thank you for letting me." As they stood together beneath the fading sky, Emily felt something beautiful settle in her heart, deep, undeniable, and whole. Because her life was no longer about surviving the past, it was about embracing the future she chose. Autumn drifted gently into Manhattan, painting the city in warm shades of amber and copper. Leaves gathered along sidewalks, swirling around the feet of people rushing through their lives. But inside Richard's townhouse, life slowed into something soft and sacred. Emily moved carefully now, her pregnancy full term, her steps slower, her smile brighter. Lily danced around the living room in little socks, humming a tune she'd made up, while Michael assembled a crib in the nursery with a seriousness that made Richard laugh. On a crisp October morning, everything changed. Emily went into labor. It happened quietly, almost gracefully, no fear, no panic. Just a strong contraction gripping her from within, followed by another. Michael rushed to her side, one hand on her back, the other holding her hand. Richard grabbed the hospital bag and ushered everyone to the car, his voice calm but trembling with excitement. Hours later, after a steady, uncomplicated labor, Emily held her newborn son in her arms. He was warm, soft, pink-cheeked, and perfect. She cried not from pain, but from an overwhelming swell of gratitude. Lily peeked over the edge of the hospital bed, eyes wide with wonder. "Mommy," she whispered, "he's so tiny." Emily nodded, brushing a tear from her cheek. "He's strong, just like you." Michael stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back as if afraid to disturb the moment. Emily looked up and smiled through tears. "Do you want to hold him?" Michael blinked, stunned. "Are you sure?" "Your family," she whispered. "Of course, I'm sure." He took the baby gently, cradling him with steady hands. The newborn blinked up at him with dark, curious eyes. Something warm and profound passed through Michael's expression, a mix of awe, love, and a silent promise. Richard sniffed loudly and wiped his eyes in the corner. "Well," he grumbled playfully, "I think we all need a moment." Over the next few weeks, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. The townhouse filled with warmth, late-night feedings, soft lullabies, and the sound of Lily giggling at her baby brother's scrunched-up faces. Emily felt joy blooming in spaces she once thought were permanently scarred. One chilly November evening, Michael invited Emily for a walk through Central Park, insisting she needed fresh air. She bundled herself in a soft coat, and together they strolled beneath the golden glow of lampposts. The trees rustled gently overhead, and distant city lights framed the skyline like a painting. About halfway along the path, Michael stopped. "Emily," he said softly, "there's something I've been carrying for a while now." She turned toward him, heart fluttering. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, not flashy, not oversized, just beautifully simple. He opened it slowly. Inside was a delicate ring, white gold, a soft oval diamond, elegant and timeless, not ostentatious, not loud, just right. Emily inhaled sharply, tears already forming. Michael's voice trembled as he spoke. "I don't want to replace your past. I want to build your future. With you, with Lily, with your son. If you'll let me, I'd be honored to spend the rest of my life by your side." Emily covered her mouth with both hands, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Michael, She didn't need to finish. Her yes was already shining in her eyes. She nodded. Michael exhaled a broken, relieved laugh as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Emily threw her arms around him, holding him tight while the autumn wind swirled golden leaves around their feet. When they pulled apart, he touched her cheek gently. "You deserve every happiness, Emily." She smiled through tears. "I finally believe that." Hand in hand, they walked back toward the townhouse, where warm lights glowed in the windows, where family waited, where laughter lived, where healing had taken root. Emily stepped inside her new life, with her head high, her heart full, her children safe, and her future finally hers. Because her story didn't end in darkness. It bloomed into everything she deserved. So, that's where Emily's journey closes, my wonderful friends. And if you are still here with me, all the way until this moment, then something in her story must have touched your heart in a very real way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or of a time you had to stand up from the ashes and rebuild yourself piece by piece. Life can be cruel, unpredictable, and unfair, but it also has a strange way of giving us exactly the people and the moments we need to start again. The Stoics used to say, "The obstacle is the way," meaning the pain we survive becomes the path that transforms us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." And Emily is living proof. When life tried to break her, she didn't just heal, she rose. If you're going through something, please remember this. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to choose peace. And you deserve a life that treats you gently. If this story moved you, even just a little, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more healing stories to those who need them most.